She looks at me from the couch. She goes, "You take any drugs today?" I'm like, "No." Like, what are you talking about? She goes, "You're glowing. Like you're glowing right now." It's like, yeah, I haven't been able to stop smiling for the last 9 hours after I cried for like 45 minutes this morning. My name is Brandon Wool. Good. Had loving parents, still have loving parents. They help me out in any way they can. And now today, being a husband and a father of 2 little girls, a lot has changed. My entire life has changed. God and Jesus was kind of mentioned here and there, but not in the form of a religious aspect. It was all about just a holiday kind of thing, if you will. So around Christmas, Thanksgiving, that was the only time it was ever really mentioned, but nothing really about anything behind the storylines of references to Bible, reference to actually going to church and stuff like that. Nothing ever really kind of stood out to what it really is. For me, it was just a mixture of whatever happens kind of thing. A bit of a karma situation too. Put good out in there, receive good, put out bad, receive bad. I've experienced a lot of death at a young age between family members, friends, and a lot of things I kind of seen growing up that I didn't know how to take in, which ended up into alcohol abuse, drug abuse, gambling issues, and just any form of way to escape any type of reality. The amount of counseling I've had, the medications I've been on, the amount of times I've been a guinea pig for drugs that were being tested for, like in Canada, just to be trying to fix something. Nothing ever worked. And there was some medication that my doctor gave me, and they were like, try this. It should help with your anxiety. You should feel a lot better. If anything, I've never felt. It felt like I was right back to square one with that medication. I was like, I can't take this. Like, this isn't something I can be doing. And they're like, oh, well, try half of a half. And I was like, I could take a quarter and it's not going to do anything. Like, this isn't right. And it felt like no one was really listening. No one was willing to help. No one was really willing to give that push. Because I was in a place where I wanted to hurt myself, kill myself, and just trying to escape. I was like, every time I went to a hospital, I'm surprised that they didn't just put me in a straitjacket kind of thing and just lock me up and put me in a padded room to just not put me back out in the real world. There was times where I was like, yeah, no, I'm fine. Like, everything's fine. Like, I'm here against my will. And I know legally they have to keep me. But, there were times where I was like, yeah, no, I'm perfectly fine. Like, I don't think I need to be here. They would let me go. Only to end up back there any time frame between 2 months, 6 months, a year. It all depended on how I felt in that moment. I also didn't know how to deal with any circumstances or any situations. So I just said, you know what, if no one can help me, maybe the drugs can help me, maybe the alcohol can help me. Anything to feel numb, anything to feel, I guess the proper terminology would be like secluded, just to be on my own. I also wanted that too. Because it also felt like as long as I was by myself, no one could really hurt me except myself. And it didn't take until years of understanding that I could have died from alcohol poisoning, could have died from overdosing, could have died from so many other things. And to this day, I still remember one time I was ready to just end it all. I was driving and I knew where I was going, but all of a sudden it just felt like subconsciously everything just took over. Like, it didn't feel like I was in control of the car anymore, and that was it. And I kind of snapped out of it, and next thing I know, I realized that there's 6 inches between me and the guardrail I was about to hit that goes straight into a lake. And I was like, what am I doing here? And I was like, and at that point, I was like, something really needs to change. Again, when you're so close to death so many times, that becomes your best friend. That becomes a normal feeling. And for the longest time, I chased it. Was how close can I get myself to death without actually dying? I had to stop drinking because I had liver problems. I had to stop doing drugs because it started affecting my mental health a lot worse. At my heaviest, I was 325 pounds. They diagnosed me with type 2 diabetes. And that's when my world felt like it was crashing down again. Because I was like, well, it's a life-altering kind of thing. So what am I supposed to do with it? At one point, there was 4 months I couldn't eat anything. I was terrified. I know that was just my anxiety and getting the best of me. But like, even my mom started contacting the doctor going, I think my son's gonna end up in the hospital again. Like, he's not eating food, he's not doing anything, like something's wrong. and eventually came out of that snap for a little bit. And in 1 calendar year from the time they diagnosed me with type 2 diabetes, I went from 325 to 160 pounds, and I reversed the type 2 diabetes. Again, there's probably going to be people that are going to see this. They're like, oh, it wasn't like that. Like, you know, from what I know, there were so many things I have behind closed doors that no one knows about. I've kept so many secrets. I've kept a lot of things bottled up, and I never reached out because that's just how I felt to feel, as I don't need anything else. I'm a mechanic by trade. Previously, before coming to Jesus, I had a hoist malfunction. Vehicle landed on me, landed right on my spine. And the way it landed on me, it was like right at the waist level kind of thing. It was a couple inches above the tailbone. Technically, with the way of the vehicle, it should have just severed it, and that should have been it. I should either be dead or, if not, at least paralyzed. How it didn't happen, I don't know, but I'll never forget the day where I'm looking at the vehicle, because the whole way it's a drive-on hoist, so everything comes up, but all of a sudden the vehicle shifted like this. So I was like, well, I've got the rear tires off. You know, I should probably try and lower it down, at least so the brake rotors can hit, and I can just do what I need to do. But the way everything shifted, and I heard the hoist make a thud, and I was like, well, I should probably at least put the rear wheels on, just in case. It's not wanting to take a shortcut here, but I just want to make this quick, so at least that way no issue should happen. And I felt a tug at my shirt. It's only me in the shop. There's no one else around. So I'm like, okay, well, is that someone trying to tell me something? Because I'm very spiritual with that kind of stuff. Like either a physical or spiritual or something, or even the voice. I pick up on that stuff. So I was like, maybe that's someone trying to tell me, like, you know, smarten up, figure it out. And I was like, okay, well, you know, I'm gonna put the wheels on. And then I really felt another tug, like someone trying to tell me to pay attention. So I said, fine, I'll put one on. I'll just put one wheel on. The other one should be fine, because the way the vehicle was set up, if anything was to happen, it would at least land on that one wheel and should be okay. And I put the one wheel on, started to bring the hoist down. Hoist isn't moving. I was like, okay, something's really going on here. And as I tried to lift it back up, where I was, the whole thing slammed down, came down on my spine, and I was a bit of a bigger guy, but still skinny enough to kind of maneuver. For a few seconds, there was a hard time breathing because it landed more up towards the ribs, squeezed through a little bit more, then it got stuck on my spine. Thank God, one of the guys came by and he didn't realize I was stuck under there until I started screaming for him. They eventually got me out. And when they got me out, my buddy who got me out, he was actually the health and safety rep. And he's like, what happened? I told him, and he goes, well, this shouldn't have happened. We just had these hoists inspected. They said they found about 4 or 5 spinal fractures, and that was it. And at the time, I was like, oh, like, you know, I didn't say like thank God or anything, because at the time I wasn't there yet being saved. But I was like, wow, you know, like, cool. And then it wasn't until my in-laws were like, no, that was God telling you, like, you should have put the wheels on, you shouldn't have done what you did. And I said, okay, well, at the time, didn't think anything of it either. Our youngest daughter got dedicated at the church, and it's the same church our oldest got dedicated at. But that day, it was a weird day for me. I was really sick, but like not flu sick, just in my own head kind of sick. Just I was getting anxious. I was overwhelmed with something. I couldn't figure out what it was, but it was around that time frame where that void was still there, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I looked at my wife and I said, you know, like, I can't go on stage with you. Like, I'm freaking out. And she goes, well, it's time to go. Like, we got to do this. Like, let's go. And I said, okay, fine. The whole service, it felt like it was just me and the pastor in that room. It didn't feel like there was 200, 300 people in that room. It just felt like it was just the pastor and I, and everything he had to say, it felt like it was just directed to me. And all of a sudden, as I'm holding my oldest, I just felt like a really warm, peaceful moment. And I was like, okay, like this is something. After the day of church, I remember leaving and I was like, I couldn't stop smiling. I was like, this is weird. I feel great. Like I felt like not a hug was on me, but it felt like hands on my shoulders. Like you've got this, like just take a breath. you're fine. Which felt weird to me. For how I understood and interpreted religion, it was just, if you want to believe it, you believe it. I don't want to be pushed on it. That's just how I was. And after realizing maybe that's not how it's supposed to be, I was like, okay, well, it was good. Let's just see what happens next time, kind of thing. I think it was like 2 weeks after that, we were at the church that we go to up north, where we're living now, and the service hit me hard too. My pastor's really good, so if I've got any questions, like, he helps me out with everything. And I remember, I think it was the Tuesday after that service, I was just driving to work. If not Tuesday, it was Monday. But I just remember driving to work, and I was listening, like, even before that, I started changing my style of music, started changing a lot of things. I started listening to worship music. It was called Raise a Hallelujah. And I cried that service when our youngest got dedicated, and which was weird to me, because I don't mind crying, but like, that was the first time I ever crying and being like, wow, like I feel touched, I feel warm. And then I remember driving to work that morning, listening to that song, and I just remember feeling, again, a warmth, like just something was trying to get a hold of me. And I remember the song finished. I just remember pulling over, like, before I even pulled over, I just said, you know what, like, God, this is it. Take it. I don't want this anymore. This is not, I can't live like this. Like, I need you to take this from me. I'm done. Like, I surrender everything to you. Just take it all. I can't do it. Like, I need you. And it just felt like, as I said that, like, it was a bit of a cloudy day, but it just felt like the clouds just perfectly opened up. The sun came straight through the windshield, but it felt like a hand came down, grabbed my heart, and just squeezed it, and it left. But it left me warm the entire day. I couldn't stop smiling. I couldn't stop, like, I'm still bawling my eyes out in the car, and I'm still smiling like an idiot. And I just remember texting my wife, and I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm great. Like, I feel great. Like, nothing's gonna tear me down today. I got home, and she looks at me from the couch. She goes, "You take any drugs today?" I'm like, "No." Like, what are you talking about? She goes, "You're glowing. Like you're glowing right now." It's like, yeah, I haven't been able to stop smiling for the last 9 hours after I cried for like 45 minutes this morning. And I was just like, this, I don't know what, and I explained it to her. I was like, I don't know what happened. Like, you know, that would be what people would call like the saving moment, right? And I was like, for people who don't believe, you can't put that into words. Like, that's an experience that, like, not a lot of people get that, not a lot of people feel that, but the people who aren't feeling that are the ones who aren't really opening up or accepting. And as soon as people do that, that's when that happens. Since I was a kid, I've always had a strong connection with supernatural stuff. Never knew what kind of power it was, per se. I didn't know if it was a good kind of thing or an evil kind of thing. It was just, I've always had this open ability to see and hear things. And when I tell this to people, they're like, you're just crazy. You need to be in a loony bin. I'm like, no, like, I'm telling you, I can see and hear things. My brother has the same thing. We've always been told by other people we have this gift. I don't know what that really means, but like, for one example, we've both seen the same spirit in two totally different parts of towns, if you will. Like, when I was working in Scarborough, I've seen something, and I explained to my brother years later. He goes, "Oh yeah, I've seen her several times too." So I'm like, well, that's just weird. The most recent one was, it was right after Bible study at the church, and I was driving my car home. And for those who don't know what a 1979 Thunderbird is, it's a really big car. It's all steel. This thing's a boat. They call it a land yacht. The thing's massive. It's rear-wheel drive. Unfortunately, in a blizzard with no winter tires on, it's a bad time. And I remember coming home that night, and I just remember praying to God, like, I know I screwed up. I should have put winter tires on this thing as a mechanic. I know better, but at the time I just didn't have the funds to get the tires. So it's like, just, God, Jesus, just please get me home. All I want to do is get home tonight. Like, I'll figure out the tire situation. Just, I'm praying that you get me home tonight. I prayed that from the church to the house the whole time, and it's over a half-hour drive, which turned to almost an hour drive just because of the weather. And just kept praying it over and over and over again, just get me home. I just want to see my wife and kids tonight, just let me get home. And as I'm driving home, there's a stretch of road. Now, where we live, there's not that much street light. It's 99% darkness. Like, we don't see anything. There's a stretch of road where there's just no snow, no nothing. I was like, perfect. I can go a little bit faster here just to get me going. So I went a little bit faster, and a deer comes out. Didn't jump out on the road, but it came out. Freaked me out enough where I was like, maybe we should slow down a little bit. So I slowed it back down. But what was weird about the whole thing is that the deer's eyes were this bright blue, and it was just staring at me as I drove by. Like, it wasn't even staring at the car. It felt like it was staring at me. Kind of felt like a warning of like, you need to relax. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll slow down, relax. And I still kept continuing praying all the way home. The wind took a shift, and it was just, so it felt like the snow was just in a twirl at this point. And I was like, I can't see anything. And like, from the distance of like where I'm sitting in the car to the hood is almost like 4 feet, 3 feet. I couldn't even see the front of the bumper. Like, it was just brutal snow. So I was like, well, just get me home. Like, praying you get me home today. And then all of a sudden, it was just like, this thing was right beside me. And I say thing because at the time I didn't know what it was, but it just looked like someone was walking there. And because again, in pitch black, you can't see anything. So it looked like there was just snow hitting a person, if you will. And then all of a sudden, it just, from what I could see, it was almost like the form of Jesus Christ himself, just looking at me. And I know there was no one there, because usually when people are walking up and down that kind of road, they're always wearing reflective gear. We live not that far from a sled trail, so people are always wearing high vis to make sure they're visible. But there was no one there. And it just felt like he was just staring there like this and just watched me drive by. It was almost as quick as how I felt feeling freaked out to all of a sudden just calm and collected. And I just felt like a warm embrace, and it just, nothing was said. I didn't hear anything, but to me, it just felt like, I've got you. You're good. I just remember going slow, finally got home, and I was like, wow, like that felt, I don't know what I saw, but I was like, that had to have been, like, there's no other way. Like, we're praying about that out loud, and he just shows up. And of course, again, back to the whole ADHD thing, it took me 3 days to remember to tell my wife, being like, you won't believe what happened the other day. She goes, you're telling me now? I'm like, well, yeah, I totally forgot. But yeah, there's been a lot of supernatural things that have been happening. Whether it's a dream or whether it's something like that, just totally awake and seeing it. And it was like, that's something. Jesus has changed a lot of things in me since I've come to him. My vocabulary is a little bit different. I'm not swearing as much. If anything, I've been swearing a lot less. There's times where it slips up. For example, if I cut my finger on a really sharp knife and and I'm leaking everywhere, yeah, might let one out, but I do my best not to. My anger's gotten a lot better. I'm not as angry as often as I am. If I do get angry, I catch it quicker. It gets angry for that split second. It's like, you know what? Time to calm down. It's not the end. Just let it be. It's actually brought my wife and I a lot closer too, where I can start sensing if she's got something going on. We click a little bit quicker, and I can help her out with that. Started growing my fingernails back out because I kept biting them all the time. Sometimes it slips up and I end up biting my nails again, but I know that's just a stress relief for me. But there's a lot of bad habits that have been broken. He's also shown me a lot more things too. A lot more joy, happiness, accepting of things, realizing that I'm not in control of anything. Like, I really don't control anything. And I know that for me, for the longest time, that's all it felt like, is like, I can control the situation. I can control this. I don't have control over anything. That's all on him. It's his timing, it's his ways, and I've come to accept that. But since doing that, I've never felt more at peace with my own life. But like, when my mom has to go to my wife and say, like, this is the first time she's seen me actually be at ease with myself and everything's kind of coming together, that alone explains something. Like, I'm 31, So for my mom to say that kind of tells you what's been going on for the last 30 years, right? It's not meant to be easier. There will be challenges for sure, which we've definitely had a lot of those, between my car ending up in a ditch, my wife's car getting hit at the gas station, trying to help my car that died at the gas station. But there will be challenges. Things will happen. But at the same time, with those challenges, what makes life easier is how you face those challenges. I realized, how am I going to actually act upon certain circumstances? If things happen, nothing's in my control. The week after we've been baptized, which was last Sunday, it's been a very trying week. I've been let go from a job. I've had my fingers cut up from knives because I wasn't paying attention. I've ended up in the ditch with my Thunderbird. My car died getting gas, so I had my wife come out to help boost my car. She ended up getting hit at the gas station, got stuck there for an hour and a half. So yeah, it's been a really trying week, but I've never felt more at peace with myself and more at peace with anything that's been happening. And now I've been getting offers for other things left, right, and center. And now it's just a matter of time if that's the route we need to go, or if that's something else we need to pray about, kind of thing. Now, it's hard to live a day-to-day life without thinking if I'm doing something wrong. I want to live a more Christ-like life. I'm still learning a lot myself. Recently, I had a friend who decided to come to Christianity, and he's asking me questions. And I was like, I don't even have answers because I'm still on this part of the Bible, kind of thing. I don't even know. But even now, like with my wife, I have to ask her, like, is this a sin? Is this wrong? Like, I can't even do a white lie. Like, she made me banana bread one day, and for me, I know in my own head I have weird food things because I don't want to go back to being diabetic, or back to that kind of a scare, if you will. So I just avoid those kinds of things. So she made me banana bread with chocolate chips. She's like, you have to try it. You're going to love it. I said, fine. I chose not to eat it that day because I was like, I'm already busy. I got a lot of work. I don't want to do this. So I came home and she's like, oh, did you eat the banana bread I made you? I said, no, I was going to, and I dropped it. It fell in some dirt. So I wasn't going to eat it, unfortunately. And she's like, oh, well, that's a shame. And then I went for a shower to get ready to go to church, and I got convicted in the shower. And I was like, well, now I have to say something because that's not right. So I got out of the shower and I went up to her, and she's giving our kids a bath. And I said, listen, I said it fell in some dirt. I lied to you. It's actually still sitting in the truck. I just didn't eat it. I said, I can't do it. There's part of me that wanted to eat it so bad, I couldn't eat it. She yelled at me for it, which was fine and understandable. But I was like, you know what? At least I feel better of being truthful about it. But like, again, just a little white lie, just to be like, yeah, no, I didn't do this, or yeah, I did this. And I was like, I just gotta be more truthful. And I've been convicted of that ever since. Out of 100,000 different things I would have ever expected to be, where I would have expected to be, church wasn't one of them. Again, like when people are like, oh, he's not real. Like no, he's real. Like he gave me that push. He called me home, and I've never been more at peace with any of it. And I tell people that, they're like, God, you're just full of it. I'm like, no, I'm serious. Like, this is a real deal thing. For the longest time, I didn't believe. This is what made me believe. I think it was just as we were starting to go to the church, my vision was getting blurry. I was having a hard time seeing. Like, I wear glasses already, but I was having a really hard time just seeing. It felt like my vision was doing this. And then I remember picking up Acts and just reading it, and I was like, it felt like that. It felt like I was having that problem seeing, having that problem just really getting that understanding. And like with Saul's hatred towards Christians and everything else that he was doing, and then completely changing his life around, reading about that really made me feel like I was going through that. Like I wasn't killing anybody, but it felt like, it just felt like that part of the hatred towards, for me, like it was just hatred towards the world, hatred towards so many people for just unnecessary hatred. And I didn't even look inward at all. It was just, I just hate everybody. And then coming to fruition of of what he went through for his transition, if that's what it felt like for me. And I was like, okay, now that I'm in that transition of where it's no longer hatred, it's just love and nothing but love. I was like that part really, really touched me. So and I know there's a lot more to go through. I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say, oh, that's not for me. I don't need that. Like, who's, whatever. I don't need that kind of thing. Like, I was one of those guys that said, I don't need him. He turned his back to me. I don't need him. Like, that's whatever. When people start to realize that there's a lot more ways to live a better life by accepting, that's when things start to actually become more of a happening miracle effect, if you will. And I was one of those guys that said, this isn't for me. I don't need it. I don't want to hear about it. Don't even mention it. I'm just anywhere but me. By just accepting the good news and listening and just saying, God, Jesus, I need to be saved. I don't want this anymore. There's going to be a lot of people out there that are like, oh, I don't have a problem. I'm totally fine. Not admitting you have a problem is a problem. I was one of those guys. I was said, I don't have a problem. I don't, whatever. And it wasn't until, like I said, with all of my history, like God puts up these blockers. At the time, I didn't realize that's what it was. When I explained it to my pastor, he's like, yeah, no, God puts up these blockers. He's like, your liver failure that you almost had, that's God saying it's time to stop drinking. It's the mental health issues that came with the drugs. That's God saying, quit doing the drugs. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. Like, that actually makes sense. Better question is, why not? Just try it. Just see what happens. If you really don't think it's for you, then it's really not. Then whatever. Go into it with an open mind. You will see the great changes that come with it. It's not an easy walk. It really is not an easy walk. But how your lifestyle changes along that walk, that's where things change. The warmth I have now, the happiness I have now, the joy I feel, that's something I don't remember having since I was a kid. And I had a great childhood. I was bullied a lot though. I was picked on. I was teased on. I was that kid. I was an easy target. Being the heavier set kid in any group set, yeah, you'll easily be picked on. But that also led to other situations which developed into the escapisms, if you will. Overcomers is kind of like a support group to the church. It's like AA, but it's meant for other things too. So whether you're going through an addiction issue, a loss, or any type of like struggle, anything, that's the place you want to go to. Like, even for people who are alcoholics, they go there as well. Like, it's meant for everybody, not just AA where it's strictly just alcohol and drug abuse, like drug thing. This is for everybody, for everything. And when I heard the pastor's story of everything and what the church is becoming and what they've done, I was like, man, you know what? Like, if he can do it from what he's gone through, this is where I need to be. And it's a 12-step program like any other 12-step program. But again, Bible-based and everything else like that too. And I remember sitting beside my wife and we're watching the video, and at one point she looks over at me, she goes, what's going on? And I was like, it feels like everything I felt that week, everything was in that video based on it. And I was like, it feels like every time I was supposed to be at a church for whatever we were going to be doing, whether it was the dedications or it was the overcomers, it felt like everything was God just saying, you need to be here. You need to listen. This is what you need to be doing. If you're not willing to be saved, if you're not willing to give it that push, you're not going to get anywhere coming through the doors. You have to be willing. You have to be accepting. You have to be understanding and be open-minded. It's not for people who are meant, like for people who are just closed-minded and they're just like, it's just another Sunday, I'm here, whatever. It's not going to do anything for you. But I'll never forget when we went to Overcomers, I was like, nope, I know what it is. It's this. And it felt like I was just avoiding a reason to go to the church. And then again, had my wife not just giving me that good push to be like, we're going. That's where everything started. I'm done running. I'm done hiding. And for the longest time, I felt like, for the things I said, the things I did. I didn't feel like I was worth being saved. I didn't feel like there was any worthiness there between hand in hand kind of thing. And then from seeing what I've seen and feeling what I felt, like, yeah, they're like, people need to realize that this is what they need. Jesus to me is, he's a best friend, a father, someone who really knows how to pick you up no matter what. For the longest time, I didn't feel like there was anything out there. And for me to just reach out, and it felt like a hand coming back to literally pick you up at your lowest of lows. That to me is like a best friend that you've been missing for a long time. The first person I'm talking to is him. You know, what do I need to do? Show me what's going on. Is there something I'm missing? And then 9 times out of 10, it's that little voice that's just like, just read. Just pick up the book and read. He's like, I'll show you what I'm trying to tell you. And for me, like I said, like, no better teacher out there too. Any struggle I've got, I've never been the person to really reach out for anybody to just be like, hey, like, I'm really hurting here. Can you help me out? I mean, my parents have helped us out time and time again. We've had family help us out time and time again. But in terms of the things that I'm going through, just either through mental health still or financial issues or whatever else, like, or not even financial issues, but like aids for jobs or anything like that, like, he's really shown me it doesn't hurt to just reach out, because someone will reach out and help you out too. So yeah, to me, definitely the best friend and the father, 100%.